Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where pharmacists can fill your pet's prescriptions, helping you pamper and protect your pet with pills, peanut butter, toys, and treats. Stop into the store today or visit Safeway.com.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Colorado has a state mushroom now. Governor Jared Polis signed a bill crowning the emperor mushroom with the title. He claims the fungi looks like a portobello and tastes amazing. Interestingly, scientists only recently distinguished the emperor mushroom from its close cousin, the prince mushroom, making our state shroom the mushroom formerly known as Prince. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel. Coming up, international students are being told, you can't study here anymore. We break down why. Then, Colorado's incredible library of seeds helps protect the U.S. from disaster.
Some are preserved in liquid nitrogen, others in airtight containers.
But the collection is at risk. Plus, the growth of Colorado Springs puts a bunch of tricky issues in front of the new city council. And
Let me tell you something, my friend. Hope is a dangerous thing.
A film fest that wants to make you cry. It is Thursday, April 3rd. Here's the news in Colorado today. At least 9 international students at Colorado universities are being told that they can't study here anymore. That after hundreds of other students at American universities, both in the U.S. and abroad, had their academic visas revoked this past week. CPR's Allison Sherry and Ben Marcus are here. They're going to help us sort out what comes next for the students in Colorado. Allison, tell me more about these students. Who are they?
Well, we don't know their names. We don't know all of their circumstances, but we did confirm that at least half of them are Middle Eastern, 4 Kuwaitis, and 1 Saudi national. They were studying at either CSU or CU Boulder. And additionally, a CSU graduate who was working at the Student Center there also had their visa revoked. And we should note that there are more than 10,000 international students in Colorado here on visitor visas.
And do we know why the visas were revoked?
It's not clear, but we can make a couple of deductions based on the national news. Secretary of State Marco Rubio last week made some strong comments about students here on visas.
I think it's stupid for any country in the world to welcome people into their country that are going to go to your universities as visitors. They're visitors. And say, I'm going to your universities to start a riot.
You know, they're scrubbing social media accounts of student visitors in the United States. I don't want to speculate too much on these particular students in Colorado since we don't know, but elsewhere, the Trump administration has said that they are targeting or looking for students who've either protested against Israel's military offensive in Gaza or have made what they consider to be anti-Semitic statements, or they've been sympathetic to ideologies held by terrorist organizations like Hamas.
A lot of that sounds like typical protest activities that happen in colleges.
It is true, and I'm not sure also if these students, if they had a visiting visa that was granted during the Biden administration, for example, were warned not to make a quote-unquote un-American statement online because this could be revoked. You know, I'm not sure that's actually been a thing before. So you have to think this must have caught them off guard.
So then how unusual is it to have a student visa revoked?
It's rare. You can get a visa revoked if you're charged with a serious crime. And we don't know, how many visas were revoked last year or the year before. But I did speak to some university officials just on background, and they said, this is news in the sense of we haven't ever seen just kind of a mass revocation of a bunch of students at one time, especially all from one country.
And now, Ben, just to get into specifics, can the State Department revoke these visas without any sort of legal process? Or do they need to prove that these students were breaking the law or engaging in some sort of anti-American activities?
So I spoke with an immigration attorney who said that there is no due process. There are no hearings. Wow. That once the State Department removes you from the system, the university is notified, and then you have a choice. You can stay and fight and appeal it, but the feeling is that most people will not appeal because they could then potentially be detained.
And in a broader sense, what happens to the students if their visas are revoked?
They can return to their home country. They can reapply for a student visa later. They can apply to other countries for student visas later, and that adds some complications. Will their credits from Colorado transfer to the University of Toronto, for example? Will they get credit back for the tuition that they've spent in Colorado? And that matters because the tuition that out-of-state residents pay for CU Boulder, for instance, is almost 3 times what in-state residents pay. And so CU Boulder and other universities, state universities in particular, are relying on international and out-of-state students to help shore up their budgets because their tuition is so much more. So there's concern that by limiting the amount of student visas, or at least having a chilling effect on people applying for student visas in the United States and in Colorado, that could ultimately hurt the bottom line for the universities.
Ben and Allison, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you know that the largest seed bank in the world is in Fort Collins? It's housed at Colorado State University, and it holds billions of seeds. They're meant to protect the state and the entire country from catastrophes like famines. But the seed bank is not sure it'll have enough funding to last past the end of September. CPR's Haley May is reporting on this. Haley, let's start with more of an explanation on what a seed bank even is and why it's important.
It's actually one of the most secure labs in the region. In fact, it's known as the Fort Knox of seeds.
Love that.
Yeah, inside there are vaults and refrigerators full of specimens for all the nation's crops. Some are preserved in liquid nitrogen, others in airtight containers, and there's other genetic materials there too, like bee semen and cattle DNA. All of it kind of acts as a fail-safe in case of pests, disease, or even extinction.
So it's like an insurance policy for the future.
Yeah, but not just for the future. The lab also figures out ways to make our current crops more resistant to ongoing threats. An example of this recently is the wheat stem sawfly. It's a little yellow and black bug that showed up in Colorado's wheat fields about 15 years ago. Now, it lays eggs inside the plant's stem, and the larvae eat up the stalk, making them vulnerable to winds.
And we know how windy the plains are. That sounds like a nightmare for farmers. How did the seed bank help?
Well, scientists were able to breed a strain of wheat that has a stronger stalk, so larvae couldn't eat through it. Here's Amy Charkowski. She's an associate dean for research in CSU's Agriculture College.
Within just a few years, able to go from recognizing the pest to developing these solid stem wheat varieties. But they could only do that because we had the material right here. If they hadn't done that, we don't know if we could grow wheat anymore in Colorado. That's how significant the problem was.
Wow, wait, if the lab is so vital, why is the funding in question?
Well, the budget is up for reconciliation this year in Congress, but it's unclear whether the lab will have the same pot of money as it's had in years before. And part of that is because the new Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, has axed a bunch of federal grants.
They're still working on budget reconciliation, so we're not sure what the budget looks like moving forward. Where we are not seeing funding at all right now is through USDA grants, so we have nothing to apply to.
Funding shored up till September 30th, but after that, the future of the lab is really up in the air. One hope is that if the funding is cut, Colorado lawmakers would step up and ensure that the lab continues regardless of what happens in Washington.
And what happens if they don't actually get the funding?
Well, a lack of funding means that they have to let the scientists go, and they've already let go most of the student researchers who work there because of recent USDA cuts. Without people to maintain those specimens, there's a chance that they could all die. Essentially, if you pull the funding, both the upkeep and the active research slow dramatically or could stop entirely. An example of research happening now is how to breed peaches that are resistant to a fungus affecting orchards on the western slope.
Haley, that does sound concerning. Thank you so much for breaking it down for us.
Anytime. Thanks, Arlo.
Colorado Springs voters chose 4 new city councilors this week and reelected 2 incumbents. They'll face big questions about the city's growth. KRCC's Andrew Chelfin is here to talk about what's next. Andrea, what are the issues that the new city council will tackle?
They face a lot of questions. One of them is about building heights downtown. There's a proposed skyscraper that would be the new highest tower in Colorado Springs. That's pretty controversial. Also, they're in the midst of figuring out how to comply with a state law that's requiring more housing density. Now, that issue could actually be resolved before the new council is sworn in, but they will likely continue weighing efforts to create infill and as well as to expand the city's actual boundaries.
A lot of these topics that you mentioned have been controversial in the past, but this election had noticeably low turnout.
Yeah, it did, Arlo. I would have thought that the turnout this time around would reflect some renewed interest because of all of these topics, but unofficially, less than 25% of registered voters cast ballots. That's actually 2 percentage points less than the last time the same seats were up for election.
I want to go back to the last issue you mentioned that they will be tackling. What do you mean with expand the boundaries?
The last council, there were several proposals for Colorado Springs to actually annex land from other jurisdictions, like the county, for example. They're called flagpole annexations because the actual land for development is attached to the city through a ribbon of land, sometimes a road, maybe a little bit more. One of these may even come to a public vote. It deals with land near Schriever Space Force Base, where the idea is to build thousands of homes and commercial properties. No doubt that the idea of annexations will continue to come up, but also that of infill, and that is an ongoing conversation when it comes to public safety and efficient evacuations.
And what else do the city councilors have planned post-election?
One of the incumbents who won is Nancy Henjum. In her next 4 years, she wants to, quote, level up as an outdoor recreation destination. It's interesting to me because Colorado Springs was founded in part on the principle of tourism. The skyline is Pikes Peak. So it's interesting to see that thread continue in 2025.
Andrea, keep us informed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arlo.
Sometimes all you need in life is just a good cry. And that's exactly what a film festival in Denver is promising to serve up.
I will never let go, Jack. I'll never let go.
The 1997 box office hit Titanic is one of more than a dozen tearjerkers featured during the April Showers Film Fest at the Sea Film Center. Others on the lineup include the zombie flick Train to Busan, which is one of my personal favorites and is indeed heartbreaking. There's also My Girl, starring a very young Macaulay Culkin, and The Shawshank Redemption.
There's something inside they can't touch.
What are you talking about?
Hope.
Let me tell you something, my friend. Hope is a dangerous thing.
The Sea Film Center's artistic director says a big ol' cry can be cathartic, and he's hoping people let all their feelings out during these tearjerkers. And yes, tissues will be provided. This cinematic cry fest runs through most of this month, and it is one of the suggestions on CPR's weekly Art Spotlight, highlighting things you can see and do around the state this weekend. CPR's Lauren Antonoff Hart writes the Colorado Art Spotlight. Find her full list on the link in our show notes. Thanks for listening to Colorado Today. If you love having us be a part of your daily routine, the best way to support the show is by sharing it with a friend. Remember to follow Colorado Today in your podcast app and stay warm out there in this April chill. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where pharmacists can fill your pet's prescriptions, helping you pamper and protect your pet with pills, peanut butter, toys, and treats. Stop into the store today or visit Safeway.com.